So you're all very welcome, as I say, to this meeting of NasCSO, the project that seeks to connect and further develop connections, I suppose, between civil society organisations here in Ireland and your MEPs and indeed other representatives from the Parliament. And I'm delighted today that we're joined by two of our MEPs and for your own constituency region, Deirdre Clune and Billy Kelleher, and indeed Thomas Kramer from the European Parliament Liaison Office in Dublin too, and a few of my own colleagues as well, who I'll introduce later. So you will have gotten a meeting pack. I'm just going to share screen there and pop that up just so everyone can see the kind of run through for the day. I suppose as well, just to let you know, unfortunately, Nick Wallace has just dropped us a note to say his assistant, he will not be able to join us because he's currently in the air flying home and his flight was delayed. So through no fault of his own, unfortunately, he won't be able to join us. There's a chance he may at the tail end of the meeting, but that's unlikely. But delighted, as I say, to have Billy Kelleher and Deirdre with us today, who I will introduce shortly after I just give you a brief overview of NasCSO. And of course, hear from yourselves. We'll just go around the houses quite quickly just to hear from you all and who you're representing, so we have an idea of who's here today. And then we'll have a really substantial discussion section where, as I say, I will stop recording and there'll be a chance for you to ask the questions you want to ask of your MEPs about their work, about, you know, how I suppose they can best support you in your work in civil society organisations. And that, as I say, is the point of this project, is to help you to navigate that if it's something new to you. I recognise that there are people here today who know this world quite well and, you know, it's no sort of new thing to them. And then for others, it is quite new and they're not sure of how to broach it. How do I contact my MEP and what's the best way to do it? What supports are there from the European Parliament and so on and so forth. So I'll keep my own contributions very brief. I've told you a bit about NasCSO, and indeed I work for European Movement Ireland, or EM Ireland. We are an NGO working since 1954 to develop these connections between Ireland and Europe, between organisations like your own and the MEPs and all of our leaders within the EU, and indeed national leaders over and back from Brussels and Strasbourg and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different work, a lot of different programmes that we do in education, communications, and this kind of development of connections. And NasCSO then fits nicely into our programme of work as one of our projects, which we are doing with the support of the European Parliament. We're also part of a wonderful network of European movement organisations right across the globe in 34 countries, so some outside of the EU, of course, and countries that perhaps would look to join the EU in the future. And we are one of the strongest, I'm proud to say, of the European movement organisations across the world as well, with one of the biggest teams, and we've been going for one of the longest as well. Noelle O'Connell is our CEO, and she's also a vice president of EM International. So we always say that that's great to have an Irish woman at that level, part of these discussions that are hugely important with organisations across the globe. NasCSO, I've told you about already, about developing these connections, and in any way that we can connect you, we are here to do that. It's not just about today, it's not just about this meeting. If I've had some follow-up since our last one where people said, listen, I want to get involved with this initiative, could you advise? And whether it's, you know, the European Parliament or the Commission, whatever it is that you want from Europe, from the EU, please do contact us, and we're happy to facilitate any sort of connections and anything that we can do, I suppose, to support your work, recognising, and this is why the project funding came in for us, that it is quite a difficult time for civil society organisations. I would say in the wake of COVID-19, but unfortunately that's not possible to say at this point. But in the ongoing pandemic, we recognise that it's more challenging than ever. So this is all about connecting you and helping you to get the supports that you need and develop those connections if indeed you have been in touch with your MEPs already to date for your work. So we're having these roundtable meetings right across the country with the different MEP constituencies and indeed on different topics. We've been going since earlier in the year, so you can watch back any of the meetings we've had to date, and indeed some of them will be of interest to some of you that perhaps you didn't have a chance to attend, but they were in areas such as agriculture, fisheries, equality and diversity, and so on and so forth. So it could be worth looking back at some of those and the discussions we had as part of those. And as I say, this is a chance to have a meeting, to have a discussion, to ask the questions you want of your MEPs. So that's what we're here to do today, and we hope that you'll be able to engage. And if you're not comfortable speaking, please do pop questions in the chat at any point, and we'd be happy to share those on your behalf. Tá míle fáilte romh an chlór a dhéanamh go hiomlán trí ghaeilge freisin, rinne mar cruinniú iomlán trí ghaeilge agus tá muid a gcónaí ar fáil chun teagháil a dhéanamh le trí ghaeilge faoin glór freisin. So we run the programme fully through Irish as well. So má tá beag an ghaeilge nó lán ghaeilge a géin duine, tá míle fáilte romh teagháil in, and we can provide you with supports and links and things like that through ghaeilge freisin. As I say, lots of meetings to date, and you can watch them back and learn more about the programme on our website there, which you will have gotten the link to from Muireann and Caoimhe, my colleagues. And please do sign up if you haven't on our website to be sure that you continue to get information about NasCSO. I won't go through all of this, but some information there on the intergroups and the committees, and this is really important, I suppose, to have an idea of all of your Irish MEPs, not just those from Ireland South, who works on the areas that are of interest to you and who would be best to contact in relation to specific issues. So just to keep that in mind, and I will send these slides out to you afterwards. So here today is myself, of course, Head of Communications and Education and Project Lead of NasCSO, and my colleague Kieran O'Driscoll, a proud Castleton Bear man, our Policy and Research Officer, is also with us today. Caoimhe McCarthy, one of my project supports on NasCSO, who worked very hard sending you all out information today, along with Muireann O'Shea, who's our Communications and Projects Assistant, and also works on the NasCSO team. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're joined by Thomas Kramer, who's the Community Manager with the European Parliament Liaison Office in Ireland. So we've got a nice spread, and there are some of you, and to have a quick look perhaps to see who else is here today, but I will pop around and ask you all to introduce yourselves very briefly, if that's all right. And indeed, I've also shared a bit of information here, which we can come back to. This is just a little sprinkling, a little sample of work that's being done across Ireland South by the European Union. So it's always important, I think, to think on that level, on the local level as well. What's being done in my community by the EU? What more could be done? And to sort of ask those questions. So here are a number of sort of recent things that have been happening and funding and so on and so forth, programmes in Ireland South. And we will share this with you. And indeed, Kieran leads on an article that we do every month with the Echo in Cork, where we really explore this as well, what's being done specifically in Cork on those articles too. So that's something that's quite important to us, to talk about what is being done for your region by the EU. So as I say, stay connected, send us questions. We'd be delighted to hear from you. But I think without further ado, I'd love to hear from you, and I'm sure the MEPs will be delighted to too. So I might just very quickly run around the house and just ask you to introduce yourself and the organisation you're here representing today, or indeed if you're just here as an interested citizen, please do let us know that too. So I see someone there from Cork Craft and Design. I might start with, that's okay.
Hi. So I'm Carol, and I'm representing Cork Craft and Design. So for anyone that hasn't heard of us, we are a social enterprise and membership organisation here in Cork, and we represent over 100 craftspeople from across the city and county, and just support them in terms of business opportunities. We kind of act as an umbrella group to lobby on their behalf. So it's incredible, the amount of talent that we have in such just in Cork alone. It's incredible. So that's who we are. So thanks very much for having us and for the invitation.
Thanks, Carol. And my team, I know, would agree with you. We are a team of 9 or 10, and I think half of our staff are from Cork. So great spread. Kieran can tell you about later. John Prendergast, of Walter.
Dave or Mahase Constantiv, it's Mr. John Prendergast, August Tommy Gober Le Tuberhuine, Plan Tanga Kiri here. My name is John Prendergast, and I'm working with Tuberhuine, the West Kerry Language Plan. I say on post Tagumson of Tahu Le Lauert Naguelina, Gertaquina, Counter Guelta, and Sin Ear Yeshkert. So my job is to enact a language plan which is supporting the use of the speaking of Irish and to encourage as many people as possible to speak it in the southwest of Ireland, I suppose, in the Gaeltacht of Kirkweena. So, Shimisha, Gurmagwif, Tamagsula Show.
John, Pat Hines, I see there.
Yes, good evening, how are you doing? Pat Hines, my name, I'm from the Glencree Centre for Peace and Reconciliation, and I'm the Programme Manager responsible for political dialogue within Northern Ireland, between North and South, London, Dublin, and including our 27 EU ambassadors from the various countries of the European Union, dealing on many of the political issues and so on that are affecting and afflicting us at present. So I head up that programme at the Glencree Centre.
Affecting and afflicting, Pat, I think you put that in a way that a lot of people will be able to empathise with. Thanks very much for joining us. Joanne Dolan.
Hi everyone, glad to meet you. My name is Joanne Dolan. I'm the co-founder of Teen Turn. We promote third level progression to girls from underrepresented, underserved communities throughout Ireland, particularly in STEM subjects. Currently, we're working with about 1,200 girls nationwide. We begin with them when they're in secondary school, and we build science capital. And then we stay with them from junior cert to job. We build social capital when they're in third level to encourage them to complete the qualifications and go on to meaningful employment. Nice to meet you.
Melanie from Seal Rescue Ireland, I think.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. I'm Melanie Croce and I'm Executive Director at SEAL Rescue Ireland. We're a registered charity dedicated to rescue, rehab and release of sick, injured and orphaned seals from all across Ireland. We're the only SEAL Rescue Centre in the Republic of Ireland, so our operations span nationwide. We were established about 10 years ago, and we're also dedicated to promoting sustainability and marine conservation through active research programs, habitat restoration, education, and community outreach. So we're doing a habitat restoration project at the moment where we've planned to plant over 25,000 native trees along waterways to fight climate change and to promote water quality. We're also doing a lot of habitat marine conservation work, promoting designated marine protected areas, as well as designating certain pupping sites for the seals. But mostly it's looking at proactive education and getting people involved in nature-based solutions to protect the future for our seals, as well as all wildlife, as well as ourselves. Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. Great to have you with us. And Ailsa, is it? Hope I've pronounced your name right.
Yeah, congratulations on getting my name right. For some strange reason, in a land where lots of names seem to have lots of excess letters, Irish people seem to struggle with Ailsa, but there you go. It's a good old Scots Gaelic name, so not so distant. So my name's Ailsa Spindler. I'm coordinator of Gay Project. We're based in Cork, but we have quite a wide remit. We look after the social and health welfare issues for gay, bi, trans men and men who have sex with men in Cork, Waterford, Kerry, but we also have a wider LGBTQI+ brief across the whole of Ireland. Some of you in Dublin might have seen our recent Proud AF campaign, which was combating racism within the LGBT community. Personally, I'm a very committed European. You might tell from the accent that I was born in the UK, and the day David Cameron announced the date of the Brexit referendum, I applied for my Irish passport, courtesy of my Irish granny, and I'm very happy to be living here. I've worked across Europe, and I actually was the first director of ILGA Europe, in which role I used to coordinate the LGBT intergroup meetings. So I'm very familiar with the workings of the Parliament and MEPs. So it's good to get back in touch with you all again.
As I say, different levels of expertise, and I think Elsa, you'll be towards the top of the pile there then, absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Pádraig Fitzgerald.
Hi Lisa, how are you? Hi everyone. So yeah, Patrick Fitzgerald's my name. I work with Teagasc. So for people who don't know Teagasc, it's the Agriculture and Food Development Authority for Ireland. So we provide, I suppose we provide research, advisory and training services for the agriculture and food industry, and also work with rural communities as well. So I'm based in East Limerick in Kilmallock. And I suppose part of my role as well, I actually also, I'm chairperson of local rural development company in East Limerick, Kelleher Development. So we work with rural communities in East Limerick and North Cork. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Patrick. John Glynn.
Hi, my name is John Glynn from the Gavin Glynn Foundation. Our foundation was set up in memory of my son Gavin, who passed away from cancer at 4.5 years old. We look after all children from all over Ireland from the age of 0 to 18 who need to travel overseas specifically for cancer treatment. So we look after all the logistics and financial aspects of children traveling overseas for treatment. Mainly, the most amount of children are traveling within the EU, mainly to Germany. We have a lot of kids that travel to the UK and also to America as well, but the large majority of kids would travel overseas to Germany for treatment. So our whole space is all around childhood cancer and better facilities and better treatment options for children with cancer. To date, we've helped 172 families from all over Ireland who needed to travel overseas for cancer treatment not available in Ireland. That's me.
Thanks, John. And I think you highlight how, we're probably all here for different reasons. There are different ways that the European Parliament can support the work that our organisations do. Jonathan, I might turn to you.
Good morning, August delighted to be invited to join you all this evening. This Friday, wet, miserable Friday evening here. So I'm Director of Communications and Public Affairs with the Irish Local Development Network. We're the representative body of Ireland's 49 local development companies. And as Pádraig there previously mentioned, one of our family are indeed Ballyhoura over in the northwest, and our two MEPs will be familiar with many of our, I suppose, companies across the south region, from Cork City Partnership, CCAD, NEWKD, South Kerry Development, all as far as Wexford Local Development, and so on and so forth. So we cover pretty much every locality in the country from Malin to Mizzen. Our members deliver a myriad of different programs, but I think two of the largest schemes delivered by our programs are the LEADER program, which I think you're all very familiar with, and the Social Inclusion and Community Activation program. I think both of those funds would have a European element. LEADER, obviously, co-funded under the Common Agricultural Policy, and SICAP under the ESF. So, like I said, we're active in a myriad of different areas with a whole host of different programs, dynamic organizations, and looking forward to the discussion today. So, good morning.
John. Sharon.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Sharon Horan. I work in a residential and aftercare service for young women in Cork City. The service has been in operation for 26 years. We're called Wellsprings. And I suppose not many people would know about us. We're a fairly discreet service in Cork City. We work with young women coming through care, foster care, and we just provide them with the support during that difficult transition from childhood to adulthood. So we work with young women from 16 to 23 on a residential service. And then we provide an outreach service which doesn't have any age cutoff. So young women, as they step out into kind of living in the community, they have kind of lifelong, I suppose, support there if they want it. They're young women, I suppose, still using the support of the outreach service, well into their adulthood, into their 30s even, and onto when they have their own children. So it's lovely to be here. So thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to the rest of the afternoon.
Thanks, Darren. Delighted to have you with us.
Thank you.
Anyone who's just joined as we've been having the discussion, we're just going very quickly around the house just to ask everybody their name and who they're representing, the organisation they work with. Leanne, I'm not sure if you'd like to come in.
Yes, hi, sorry, I'm Lane Kennedy here with Irish Guide Dogs for the Blind. I'm the Advocacy and Policy Officer. We're based in Cork, but we are a national charity, so we support people who are blind or have low vision through our mobility training, helping people to get out with a guide dog or a long cane. And we also work with families who have children with autism, and we provide them with an assistance dog so that the child has more confidence and better safety skills when they're going out and about in public and going to school and so on. Thank you for the invite today. I'm really just here to just listen and learn, and really just to kind of look at how we can improve our connection with yourselves and just become more involved. So thank you.
Great, Leanne, thanks. Mick, would you like to introduce yourself and your organisation?
Hi there. Apologies for being late. Hi everyone. My name is Mick Canny. I'm on the Board of Trustees of Sustainable Projects Ireland, which is the charity that established and manages the Cloughjordan Eco Village.
Thanks for joining us, Mick. And Sophie, do you want to say hello? Or?
Hi, and thank you for inviting me along. I'm the Erasmus Development Officer at Dublin City University. So, and recently only been in post since April, and I arrived in Ireland in April. So part of my work is learning Ireland as well as learning Dublin City University. And I'm interested in exploring particularly about the educational links and potential for education, European collaboration in education for Ireland. But also the Erasmus programme, of course, there's a lot of potential for collaboration across sectors. So the university will collaborate with lots of partners in other sectors for Erasmus projects. So I'm always interested in branching out a little bit outside of the university sector as well. So lovely to hear you all a little picture of things going on there. Thanks for inviting me along.
Thanks, Sophie. And lastly, I think unless I've missed anyone, Thomas, do you want to say a quick hello?
Hey everyone, I'm delighted to virtually at least meet you all. I'm Community Manager here in the European Parliament Liaison Office for Ireland. We're based in Dublin, and if you're asking yourself sort of what is that office specifically for, basically the European Parliament has an office in each of the member states' capitals. We're a small team, and what we're really sort of doing on a day-to-day basis is being approachable for citizens, but particularly also civil society organizations, if they have questions about the EU or the European Parliament's work, questions how they could probably find out which MEP might be working on issues that they're interested in, and if they're probably also looking for funding opportunities, training opportunities, and so on, then you can come to us and we can hopefully direct you to the right person. And we're a small team, so we've got one person who takes care of education. I myself take care of social media and sort of the younger generation outreach, and we've also got people sort of that reach out to the sort of political decision makers here in Ireland. So if you've ever got any questions about the EU, you don't know who to turn to, come to us and we can hopefully help you.
Thanks so much, and thanks for joining. And I do encourage you to reach out to the European Parliament Liaison Office in Ireland, and if you need contact details, they'll be in the slides that we send on. Before we kick off with our MEPs, I might just take a screenshot for social media, if that's all right with everyone. If, as I say, you prefer not to be in that, please do turn your camera off. That's absolutely fine. Okay, I'm going to go now. Thanks so much, folks. Appreciate that. So our first MEP to speak today is Deirdre Clune, who you'll see there on the screen. Deirdre is in the European People's Party and represents Ireland South, the region that most of you are based in. And Deirdre, of course, previously was TD for the constituency of Cork South Central. She was a senator and Lord Mayor of Cork, and she sits on a number of really relevant committees, I think, for some of you here today. So delighted to have Deirdre speak, and I will pass over the floor to her now. And indeed, while Deirdre's speaking, if you have any questions on specific issues, as I say, pop them in the chat or pop your name in the chat and we'll be sure to come to you just after. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks, Lisa, and hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining, and thanks, Lisa, for the opportunity to communicate and to give a little introduction as to the work I do. And I don't know if it'll benefit to you or not, but I suppose something as a politician or as a member of the European Parliament, we have to have a broad knowledge of everything. But specifically, we do committee work is very, very strong and very important in the Parliament. And I'm on two committees, mainly two. One, my main committee is the Internal Market and Consumer Affairs Committee, which deals with, well, at the moment we're dealing with legislation looking at the digital giants, as we would say, the Googles, the Amazons, Facebooks, and how to regulate them. Do they need to be regulated? Well, there is a distinct desire to do so. And we're looking at those type of legislation in terms of making sure, well, if what's illegal offline should be illegal online as well. That's the basic principle of the legislation. So, and the whole area of data protection, using data. I myself have a number of files that I'm working on artificial intelligence, which is probably very a broad, high-level subject, but at the same time, it's very important because we interact with it every day. Artificial intelligence, even as we're speaking on this call, I'm sure it's involved there. And also the whole area of consumer rights and shopping online now features strongly, and particularly if there's been lots of issues following Brexit, and it's not the same. You have protection, you have consumer rights protection, European consumer rights protection when you're shopping online, but you don't if you're doing from the UK. So a lot of people have been caught by that, and they have the same return policies, or you have to pay VAT and customs duty. So that whole area as well is a big part of the committee work that I do. I'm also on the Environment and Public Health Committee, and of course the whole area of climate change is featuring strongly there at the moment in the various files and across all the sectors. I think we're probably all very much aware of all the work that's been done there, or that's required to happen. And the public health element of that committee is featured strongly in the last number of months with COVID and vaccine purchase, vaccine rollout, PPE. Is there a role for for the European Union to play a stronger role in healthcare, which they don't at the moment? It's well, they haven't done prior to the pandemic. It's just been purely public health is a matter for the member states. But you will see more and more demand for the European Union to play a stronger role. And also there's a committee on better cancer care, and I know John, in memory of his son Gavin, probably very interested in that, and we're preparing a report. It's come from the Commission as well, dealing with cancer and how we can improve cancer for patients across Europe, because it is the biggest killer, and pediatric cancer features strongly in that, and the cross-border element, how you can leverage its strengths across Europe. I mean, we're a small country. Our children particularly don't have access to clinical trials and services that can be more specialised, and that is available in other countries. So the cross-border healthcare dimension of that features strongly, and very interested to talk to you again, John, at another time, if you like, on all that work and on what's happening there to try and coordinate and maximise the return for European citizens, regardless of their address. So, I think the work we do, the work Billy and myself do, it's very much focused on, as I say, on committee work. It can be seen, a lot of times can seem to be very far removed. But then, as many of you have outlined, I'm sure you're all engaging with European funding, with European supports, particularly to the European Social Fund and the Regional Development Fund. I think features very strongly in Ireland, and lots of supports there that are administered through local offices. I would say at the moment in Europe, obviously the pandemic is featuring really strongly, and how we can control it, but how we can deal with it. And there's very obviously the word today is very worrying. But I think we can say that Ireland has benefited from being part of the European Union in the last 20 months or so, because from the European Union acting together in terms of vaccine purchase, PPE purchase, sharing of information, I think that's been very beneficial to us. If we were a small state on the outside, we wouldn't have the same benefit to be competing with the likes of Germany or Italy to purchase vaccines. And as it stands now, Europe does that on behalf of all the member states. So one insight into how Europe can be benefit to us, but there are many more. And I mean, I mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot of talk about, can Europe do more in healthcare? Can we do more in terms of coordinating resources in cancer? Yes, but in other areas as well. And I think the answer is probably yes, even though healthcare is always a matter for the member states, but there is a lot we can do at European level. And so in the last year or so, we've seen the strengthened European Medicines Agency now has more power, more responsibility, more people and more money. The European Centre for Disease Control as well has been strengthened. And I think, and they're all positives. But as regards New Europe and communicating it, I think I'm welcome. It's great to hear all your contributions today, and it's impressive all the work that you're doing. It's been and great to hear that you want to communicate to learn more about Europe, because I think it is where our future is. It's not, and it is about bringing people together, but it's not just about money. It's about more than that. I see challenges there at the moment in terms of migration is a big challenge for all member states, and not just for those that are on the peripheries, like Italy or Greece or Poland, as we've seen in recent, and even the UK and France yesterday. So it's an issue for all, and it takes up a lot of, I don't mean to take up a lot of time, but it dominates a lot of conversation in other member states, not so much here, but it is a real challenge. And another big challenge would be climate change for us and how we're going to implement that. So I would think that the communicating Europe and what's going on there is always a challenge for us. Decisions are taken, and I often say it's easy to press a button in the European Parliament and say, yes, I vote to reduce carbon emissions by 50% by the year 2030 or whatever, but then it's the implementation on the ground is the difficult thing, and bringing people with you is always it's a challenge, because it will mean real changes for people. So I would think probably migration, climate change, what I see is the work from where I come from in my work, maybe Billy have another insight into that, are the biggest challenges facing Europe now. And again, and including the migration issue as well, the threat from Russia. Our Eastern European colleagues certainly think that that's a real issue for them. They're very concerned about Russia building up bases on their borders, and the issue in Belarus is certainly he's supported by Russia. Timoshenko's supported by Russia, but so it's a big challenge for Eastern European countries, and I think we've learned that there were so supportive of us in the Brexit debate that we need to be aware of their issues too and their concerns, and be there to support them, because we found that in Brexit the support was unwavering from every member state, regardless of the political hue, regardless of a background, regardless of previous alliances or allegiances. Every member state absolutely supported Ireland in the Brexit situation, and continue to do so. So, Lisa, I'm not sure if that's what you wanted me to say, but just to give an insight into the work I do, broader what's happening in Europe, and to say as regards communicating with MEPs, I mean, I'd like to think we're always available at the end of an email, website available through the European Parliament website as well. All our contact details are there, and the Parliament office in Dublin, the EPLO, and that's always a great contact as well if you want to get in touch with any MEP about any issue, because it may not be the work that we're dealing with on a daily basis, but when it comes to it, eventually every MEP will be voting in Parliament on a particular piece of legislation that may be relevant to you. So it's important that we'd be made aware of it and your concerns, or if you have any issues with anything, to communicate directly. Always very welcome. Great to hear voices, and great to hear people who have an interest and who want to connect with us. So I look forward to engaging with you later in questions and answers directly if I haven't addressed anything specific that you may be interested in. And thanks again for the opportunity to be with you this afternoon.
Thanks so much, Deirdre. I really appreciate that. And we will turn now to our second MEP. And just to say, those contact details, as Deirdre mentioned, will be in the slides that we'll send on to you. There are links on the slides. Specific to the MEPs, there are links to their European Parliament web pages there. So I will now pass to Billy Kelleher, who is part of the Renew Europe group and is, as I say, an MEP for Ireland South. He is a Fianna Fáil MEP, and he was also TD for Cork North Central back from 1997 to 2019, and Minister of State for Labour Affairs and Minister of State for Trade and Commerce. So Billy, we're delighted to have you with us today if you'd like to take the floor.
Gormagat, Lisa, agus Gormagat mar an cuir a hortlum cúpla lá hin. Agus you know, tá cúpla focail agam Mariola an níla mábal an Gaeilge labhairt, so tá brónar níla mábal an Gaeilge labhairt, ach gine mé an níoracht a labhairt in some Parliament, so mar níl ein member ábalte labhairt crían bacht, so sin é 5 mór chun translators agus na aistóirí in san Parliament, so mar sin dhéanamh na an íoracht Gaeilge labhairt ó an go tán in san Parliament. So that is a problem, I suppose. At the outset, I just want to say that very few of us can speak Irish, unfortunately, Lisa, fluently in the Parliament. So we're trying to make an effort to promote the language as best we can for those of us who can't speak it, just to give ourselves a little bit of confidence and others a bit of confidence as well. So so hopefully, you know, when others are elected, they can actually, you know, keep the language alive from a working language perspective in Europe. So small steps, and hopefully it will be rewarded. But it's now an official working language in terms of translation. So there's lots of opportunities for young kids to say a few words or to apply, you know, and then make an application for translator or for other services in the European Parliament. So that's an important point just to say at the outset. And I know that a lot of younger people, you know, should be encouraged to look at the Parliament as a way of a footstep into, you know, other occupations as well in time ahead. Unfortunately, in the European Parliament and the Council and the Commission, there's been quite a drop-off of the number of people from Ireland who've seen Brussels as a place to work in, and that's a significant challenge. So that's an aside. But look, thank you very much for the invite, and just to say that I'm delighted to be here today. There's a few major issues, I suppose, that are of significant interest to Irish people from a European perspective. Obviously, Brexit is the big issue that's been spoken about quite a lot, and you'll see the negotiations going on between the Commission on behalf of Ireland and the EU, and then Lord Frost on behalf of the UK government. And of course, you know, it is a very real issue. And you see Pat Hines there from Glynn and others who would be at the coalface of, you know, what Europe was about in terms of encouraging the peace process all those years ago. So when we talk about Europe, we look at it sometimes in the abstract, sort of something of a distance, but it is very much part of what we are as a people, and it's very much part of what we are in our everyday lives, you know, as we become more pro-European, but equally just in terms of we getting up, we going to work, you know, how we commute, how we live, the environment that's now around us. A lot of that is as a result of our involvement within the European Union over the last number of years. So, you know, as I said, while people might look at it in the abstract, it does have a real meaning in our daily lives. And then if you look at the funding programs and the streams of funding that have been delivered to Ireland over many, many years, you have the, you know, the major capital projects like motorways, water infrastructure, you know, all of those things are very much out there there and very visible. But a lot of things that you don't see, for example, but are also there. For example, the European Investment Bank, I think it was up on your screen earlier on, making available loans to UCC. Local authorities in Limerick have also accessed funding from the European Investment Bank. So I think over the next number of years, you will see quite a substantial increase in applications being made by local authorities and by other large organisations in Ireland for funding from the European Investment Bank. And that will be primarily, I think, in the whole area of the Green Deal and the Green Agenda, transitioning our economy and our society from one that's, from where we are in terms of carbon consumption, carbon emission, to where we want to get to, which is carbon neutral by 2050. And that will require a lot of capital investment. So that's sort of the big broad brush issues around Europe. But that percolates right down to everyday issues through Interreg funding, for example, which does have a very major impact on people's lives across Ireland. And then you've obviously other regional supports as well. And then you have the Common Agricultural Policy too, which was voted on the Parliament in the last number of days. But overall, I think what we have to try and do, and this is not about promoting the European project, this is about just, ensuring that people are aware of what is happening, advising of the opportunities, and getting people, to see Europe in a way that they can actually benefit from it, but also that we can have input into what Europe is and the direction it is taking. And that's why I said at the outset in my very garbled effort to try and say a few words, as Gaeilge, was that the more Irish people that look in the European Union as an opportunity for employment, the more people will progress to higher levels in the public administration across the Parliament, the Commission, and the Council. I'm not talking about elected representatives now here. I'm talking about public administration. And we were very effective at that in years gone by, where Irish civil servants of eminent qualifications, of great caliber, went abroad. But unfortunately, people aren't going there now anymore. They're not going to Europe in the numbers that they did previously. And I just think it's an issue that government and the public service, the civil service in particular, will have to try and address to see how we encourage young people to see Brussels as an opportunity to engage in meaningful employment and to work their way up through the public administration. Because we had some of the, Catherine Day, for example, and many others of great note from the civil service that got to the top. And that's not just about, getting to the top for the sake of it, but it does have a meaningful impact on Ireland's connection with the institutions at public administrative level as well. And then on top of that, you obviously have your ministers and the Council of Ministers and MEPs in terms of the European Parliament. And I suppose for our role, really, it is to try and keep a link between the Parliament itself and then our constituency. And that's quite difficult. And I suppose events like this are very important from that perspective, because very often politicians hear, and civil society will hear and say as well, that we only see politicians every now and again, and that there's no meaningful link between politics, democracy, and the people. And that's something that we're all trying to address as MEPs and as people involved in the European movement and other organisations like yourselves, to see how we can have dialogue on a regular basis, not just wheeling up at election time. And that's why the Conference on the Future of Europe, which is taking place at the moment, I think will have a major role to play in the direction that Europe takes on the big issues. And those big issues that Deirdre outlined earlier on, like defence, for example, migration, the environment itself. There are many areas in policy across Europe that will require big decisions in the years ahead. So, for example, the transition of our economies from carbon inefficiencies and dependency on carbon and fossil fuels to where we want to get to will require huge changes, and that will create, a certain amount of upheaval in society and how we work and how we travel and how we live, and to create further divides between people and policymakers in that journey to get there. And that's why I think, engagement is always important. Look, just briefly from my perspective, I was elected in 2019, so I'm a first timer. I'm on the Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee. That primarily is the committee that, brings forward legislation on taxation, on the economic issues. It holds the various institutions that oversee the banks and supervise the financial entities within the European Union to account. It brings them in and speaks regularly with financial supervisors, etc. And any finance legislation that is required. You'll have the banking union that was just announced by Commissioner McGuinness yesterday. Now that will come through the Econ Committee, the Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee. So we obviously scrutinise all those proposals as well. And then I'm on the Environment Committee and Environment and Public Health, which is very interesting at the moment, due obviously and relevant, I should say, more so than interesting, very relevant and important in terms of COVID, the pandemic, public health measures, the vaccine rollout, vaccine procurement that was, last year, and now how we actually ramp up vaccinations to ensure not that only Europeans get it, but that we try and increase the capacity across the globe. Look, they're broad issues, but I mean, they're the ones that are important. People might say, well, what has Europe ever done for us? But it's certainly any cursory glance or assessment of Europe, the impact that it has on Ireland has been very, very meaningful in a very positive way. And I can find very few negatives. And while we might disgruntle from time to time about policies that annoy us, be it in agriculture or in other areas, overall, it has had a very positive impact. And as I said, if you look at Northern Ireland, the peace process, the impact that has had on cross-border initiatives, the Ulster Canal, many other community projects, a lot of them were funded by the European Union. And I think that's just an indication that Ireland is well thought of in Europe and that Europe is well thought of in Ireland. So look, I'll leave it at that. Questions I think are probably more important than endless lectures from me. So, good Lisa.
Barry, really agus mar dúirt John sa chatan sin an iarcht dhéanamh ag Billy maithú great stuff an áfach ar fad agus éon tíam le John and sin. I know the Irish language media sometimes are disappointed that they don't have enough speakers among our EU representatives at the moment, so it is great. Thanks so much to everyone who submitted questions. I'm going to go just firstly to Ailsa's question in the chat, and Ailsa, do feel free to jump in yourself, but just you mentioned about health and healthcare, and you say that this is for Deirdre, a question. Ireland currently does not have healthcare programs for trans people. Until recently, such healthcare needs were partially met, being outsourced to the UK and medical specialists, but this is now not supported. Is there a case to be made for using the excellent trans healthcare services in Belgium and other EU member states to provide this service without delay? And I've just forgotten to stop recording as promised, so I will stop the recording here so that we can open our discussion even further.
Yeah, just a quick one on that. Yeah.